We are about to go on indeed.
And we return to the air after a 7-day hiatus. Shouldn't the show be
7
daily?
days.
Shouldn't the show be daily?
Given the amount of effort we put into it, yeah, we could probably manage that.
Tune in for our podcast, which will be aired every day at the same hour. Something along those lines.
We're going to rename it, what'd you watch last night? I don't know, what'd you watch last night?
I'd listen to that show. I think we're pretty entertaining. Welcome to Cinema Smackdown, the not daily show where we give our opinion about stuff. What's the date today? It is the 12th of March? No, the 12th of May? I get those M months mixed up. What about you?
Yeah, I also get the numbers mixed up.
Are you still reading
the days of the week mixed up
on your checks?
I am still reading 1947, so...
Okay.
I'm that old.
That reminds me of that guy I saw in the grocery store the other day who looked like he was a hippie who had literally stepped out of a time machine from 1967 on his way to the Sharon Tate house.
Oh, well, you're 2 years off there.
Well,
know your history.
I know.
Know your serial killer history.
They were hippies. It took them 2 years to find the house.
Oh, these brownies are real good, man.
Oh, my God. You know there's an onslaught of Sharon Tate Manson cult movies right now?
There is, yes. We have...
As it's the 50th anniversary.
How many more... Oh, right, of course, it's the anniversary issue.
Something like 5 this year. Different levels of straight to digital / we're trying to make this a legitimate movie. Mostly just terrible films that are trying to capitalize on the fact that Quentin Tarantino's putting one out in the summer.
Right. Although there's been a lot of cult movies in general lately. We've talked about this with like Apostle and The Invitation and Bad Times at the El Royale turned out to be a cult movie.
That's true. Spoilers.
Spoilers, yeah.
That's the movie where you find out there's a cult around Thor.
Well, why wouldn't there be?
The God of Thunder.
Especially Fat Thor. I want a cult for that Fat Thor.
Well, speaking of cults, I want to basically interview you today, Shane, about a cult you started.
That's true. I am a cult master.
You're sort of a cult master. Seeing as you are somewhat of the cinema aficionado among your peer group, as I understand it, going on about 17 years, you have a little movie night that you
Yeah, I had to look it up. We officially began September 18th, 2003.
Okay, so 16 years.
Yeah.
So you have 15 and a half. I'll just keep changing that number.
Working it, and
so
yes, it's a well, we call it movie night, as many people do when they get together and watch movies. Mm-hmm. But this has been a regular thing that happens on Wednesdays for, like you said, 16 years, and we are about... As of next week, we'll be watching our 700th unique feature film.
So you will, of course, for that anniversary, be watching some movie with a 700 theme?
Well, we started talking about that around... It was like, oh, should we watch 300 for 300? And the answer was no. Yeah, we've had a number of potential number themes that have come and gone. So this one will be largely unobserved.
You could just watch the movie 7.
100 times.
100 times.
Okay.
Correct.
We could watch 7, though. We haven't actually done 7 before.
One of the only movies that I think is worth watching up to 100 times. So that works for me.
7, or, I can never remember that title because I still always think of that film in my head as, what's in the box? The motion picture. What's in the box? The motion picture.
It's a cathartic movie. You get to watch Brad Pitt blow Kevin Spacey's face off at the end. I'm pretty sure that makes a lot of people happy.
Yeah, well. At the time, he was just getting rolling. He was
absolutely just getting rolling. He was the surprise, uncredited, just about to be famous guy who plays a pretty major part.
Right.
Because he has no credit in the film. I think he must be in the end credits, but he's
Probably,
not credited he was not credited in any of the posters.
Yeah, they certainly didn't advertise him as being in it.
In the early scenes. I mean, John C. McGinley, who's one of my favorite actors, is credited in the opening of the movie, and he's in the film for 45 seconds.
Mm-hmm. So basically, back in 7, Kevin Spacey was Boris Karloff in Frankenstein, because they did a similar marketing routine. It's like, who is the monster? And in the opening, back when they would give you the cast at the beginning of the movie, they would have,
is there like a question mark?
Yeah. Yeah. He is credited in the end credits, but at the beginning it's like, the monster is... and it leaves you guessing for the whole movie, because, they had this iconic monster makeup that was designed to fit Boris Karloff's face.
In 1931, there were 6 movie stars. They had to...
Yeah, a little more than that.
Guessing a little.
Little more than that.
Not a lot more, though.
There's certainly the post sound period cull that happened. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, we have to get rid of all these people with a weird voice.
That's a very good point. And hence the entire movie, Singing in the Rain, where they explain away how some people had to go away.
Yep, indeed.
Or be dubbed quite a bit. So we are going to talk a little bit about the movie night that you have curated for going on 16 years.
Yep.
And some of the weird films you've shown, and some of the strange reactions you've garnered. And, I mean, part of this is things you've forced people to enjoy.
Oh, yeah. I am... there have been many nights where I have... I used to bring a whiteboard with about 5 choices and let people vote. It'd be 5 interesting choices, but... And then there would be certain times where I would just show up and say, we're watching this, and these were known as dictator nights.
I think it's pretty funny. You recently mentioned to me that you're there 99% of the time, but on the weeks that you don't make it, they still have a movie night at this guy's house. On that, it's always on a Wednesday. You always have a movie night, and on the weeks you're not there, they inevitably always end up watching what?
A Dwayne Johnson movie.
A Dwayne Johnson movie.
It became a running joke recently, where I have had a number of nights off, and they were just going through his filmography, film after film after film. It was amazing.
He's become the more good-natured Jean-Claude Van Damme for me, in that pretty much anything he's in is garbage. That's what his career has been reduced to at this point, with a slight uptick for that Jumanji reboot film, which isn't good, but is interesting enough to not just be completely dismissed.
Right, well, that Jumanji remake film was one of them, certainly. Which is one, it's like, yeah, I can get behind not watching it for movie night, because the whole point of movie night is to expose people to films they wouldn't watch normally.
Exactly.
And if I'm not there, inevitably they will watch something incredibly mainstream.
Well, so tell me what your very first September 2003 movie night movie was.
Yeah, I should mention the origins of this movie. I am quick to be reminded every time I bring about the origins of movie night that there were a couple people involved in the even earlier days when this began as like a spaghetti night of watching Survivor, the new Survivor episode.
Wow.
Where some of the original attendees to movie night would show up. And then one day I saw a film that I kind of fell in love with, even though it is arguably trash, but it was a produced and abandoned action movie that was so much better than the usual action fare that comes out of Hollywood. I had been anticipating it coming out, and then it played, I think, probably about a week in New York and LA, and just got dumped to DVD. So I bought the DVD sight unseen, and was really impressed with it, even though it is a derivative version of, say, a cross between 1984, Fahrenheit 451, and Gun Fu.
Right.
John Woo style Gun Fu. And that was an early action film of the, I would say, semi-pre-famous Christian Bale. He obviously became, Batman and, many famous things, and had been a very successful child actor. But I'd been watching him since he appeared in Steven Spielberg's Empire of the Sun very closely, saying this guy's going to go somewhere if he can not fall into the bear traps that child actors often do with the drugs and the, look at Lindsay Lohan. That's the trajectory of so many child actors, or they were cute kids and they grew up to be really funny looking.
Right.
So that didn't happen to Christian Bale. He grew up to be a handsome guy. He was a very dedicated actor. And you could tell he was going some places. And this was right on the cusp of him really, truly breaking out. And that film was Equilibrium. Kurt Wimmer.
Wimmer.
Yeah.
Say something else, but yes,
yeah.
Kurt Wimmer.
Who became he became a writer-director to watch right up until his next film, and then I gave up.
Right.
His next film was a Mila Jovovich, similar sort of science fiction action-y film.
Deeper, weirder science fiction.
Yeah, called Ultraviolet, and it has some good visual moments, but it is a train wreck of a movie.
Yeah, there's less than 10% of that movie that's watchable.
Yeah.
And
yet there are moments that
10%,
is like, oh, I can see this might have been a good follow-up to Equilibrium.
Much like Atomic Blonde. There's about 10
yes,
minutes
exactly.
are pretty great, and otherwise it's a horror.
And then why is the rest of this film here?
I'm just trying to... I already lost the title. What was it called? The Jovovich movie?
Oh, Ultraviolet.
Ultraviolet. Worth watching the opening credits for one of the greatest pieces of score music I've ever heard, which completely ruined the movie because the movie's so poor that you feel like, why was this attached to this film? There's an opening montage of comic book covers, as though we've already been really familiar with this character from all of her wonderful comic books, which don't exist.
And then there's a lengthy backstory stinking of studio imposition of, let's explain the movie before we watch the movie.
So pretty much every Kurt Vermeer movie has that problem.
Yes, Equilibrium also has one of those, which again stinks of studio imposition because it was sort of that period of... Dark City was another film that suffered this, where they made a film that is sort of world building, and yet the studio gets nervous that, I don't know if the normies watching this are going to get it, so why don't we have a preamble or an opening scroll or something to explain, this is the world you're going to be in. So Equilibrium has an inexcusable, this is the concept of the film before the film begins, because the first scene of the film involves a police raid on what we think are art thieves. And after they are subdued in quite a remarkable action scene when Christian Bale is introduced as a, graviton cleric, whose job it is to mow down enemies of the state using this particular type of gun fu, which they contrive to call, I think, gun kata in the film, which is all about anticipating where your enemies are statistically likely to be, and just turning your hands every which way and just mowing down rooms full of people effortlessly. But it's very cool to watch.
We're going to take a little pause here to do an ad, and we'll come back with further thoughts on the movie Equilibrium. Sorry, I could tell you had 5 more minutes, and I was...
Yeah.
I got to break in somewhere.
Right.
God, I won't bring it up on the air, but you didn't buy that movie sight unseen.
Oh, I didn't?
I showed it to you.
Oh, okay.
Had you over to my place, had just watched it like 3 hours earlier.
Oh, really?
Showed it to you and Bern at the same time.
Fuck, I
then
don't remember that.
Then you bought it like immediately.
And then I started showing it to everybody.
And then you were watching it on a daily basis for like 2 weeks with different people.
Yeah.
That's
the movie night, when we watched it for a movie, that was my 5th time watching it.
We're almost... We have 2 reggae ads today, by the way. That was reggae ad number 1. So that was reggae ad 1 of 2 that we're going to have. We're going to have a second reggae ad in our next ad break. I just thought, thematically, why not just stick with what works?
Sure,
we
why
have
not?
a large reggae fan base. I want to appeal to them.
Yeah, funny enough, the rest of the movies we ever watched at movie night were all reggae related.
Oh, I wish I could just pull that title. There is one Criterion reggae movie.
Oh, yeah. Is it The Harder They Come? Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Yes, that's a Jamaican reggae stylings gangster film or something like that. I'm not even sure. Welcome back to Cinema Smackdown on CJLO 1690. Today we are running down titles of movies that Shane has shown at his hand-picked, curated movie night over the last 16 years.
And I've been blathering on at length about Equilibrium, a largely forgotten little action science fiction movie.
Well, I mean, look, as far as Equilibrium is concerned, I consider it to be this tiny little miracle of a film almost, and how well it works considering how silly it is. It's a very silly movie.
Yeah.
The amazing thing about this film was it 100% got Christian Bale his Batman job, because his demeanor in this movie is a rough Batman character.
Yeah.
And his voice in this movie is absolutely a perfect Batman growl.
If only he'd used it in the Batman movies.
So when I went to see Batman Begins in the cinema, I was like, I cannot wait to see him in this costume using that voice. And then it turned out he used his Batman voice while playing Bruce Wayne, so that when it came time to do scenes as Batman, he had to essentially gargle metal shavings in order to come up with whatever awful, awful version of speaking that is. And unfortunately, that's just carried on to every...
I'm not wearing hockey pants.
Pads.
Pads? Is it pads? Oh, god damn it.
But I like
I blew my line.
I like pants. I think you've come up with something special. I'm not wearing hockey pants. This isn't some kind of pants show.
I'm Bat Pants.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back and look at Michael Keaton, he did a perfect tiny growl in his voice. It's just a little bit of, hey, I'm just being a badass here. Then you've got Val Kilmer, not doing much of anything, and just a slightly heightened voice. And then you've got George Clooney.
Screwing the pooch.
George Clooney just walks in, he's like, hey everybody, I'm George Clooney. That was his Batman.
And I have a bobblehead for this entire movie.
Yeah.
Do you ever notice that? Especially when he's playing Bruce Wayne, he's kind of shaking his head around,
Wow.
like, I'm just so casual when I'm Bruce Wayne. Look at my bobblehead.
The only thing I know is that George Clooney got paid so much money for Batman, what was it, Batman and Robin, and the movie The Peacemaker, that he said, immediately following those films, you will never see me in another studio movie again, because I've made so much money now, I can just do independent pictures for the rest of my career.
And that was a wise career move,
he's
because
pretty much hung to
his
it.
movies were terrible in that period.
Yeah, but his movies going forward are only marginally better. So
they're
he has
interesting
a short
choices.
Period after Batman and Robin where he does great stuff, and then he did Solaris, and from Solaris forward, I think his career is awful, including his directing choices, including all of his acting, everything post 2000 I really dislike, and that very much includes the Oceans trilogy, which I despise. I just think
I appreciate that he took that initial success, or not even success, would say creative failure, but financial success.
I completely agree. I couldn't respect someone more.
And he spent the rest of his career working with who he wants to work with, and doing the projects he wants to do.
Oh yeah, and the problem is, though, I don't like him anymore. Because of his body of work, I don't look forward to George Clooney's work anymore. He's done too many minor experimental or outright bad movies in a row. I mean, Leatherheads, anyone? What a passion project.
That was an interesting
awful.
misfire.
It's an awful, awful film. I mean, he's done some interesting work with the Coen brothers. I actually am very, very fond of his arguably failure Suburbicon, which I quite like. But it's a messy Coen brothers movie, and I'll take a messy Coen brothers movie over a masterpiece Michael Bay film any day. So, at least there's that.
Oh, that masterpiece Michael Bay film will be made one day, and you will eat your words.
I certainly will. It'll be the 40th Transformers movie, and it'll somehow be good. And it will not be called Bumblebee, because as many people has told me, Bumblebee was the ultimate and good Transformers movie. They lied and lied and lied. That movie is horrid. It's not...
I'll never know, because I will never sit through another Transformers movie.
That's for the best. So let's get back to Equilibrium and or your movie night.
Yeah, well, I mean...
What was the reaction, I guess, is the first question.
Well, this was the reaction that ultimately spawned movie night, because this wasn't an official movie night. I made it the official first one, but the concept was, look, I've seen this extraordinary little action movie. Get some people together. Let's watch it right now.
Right.
So I went over to my friend Eric's place, which is, ironically, now my place. I now live where he used to live. In the space that
used to be his home.
Eric is not still there. I evicted him, but...
I was hoping you'd have some sort of interesting odd couple story for us.
No, sadly no.
I can only imagine you and Eric full-time. What an interesting personality clash.
It would be fun for about 2 days, and then I would probably murder him.
Yeah. See? Fun. All the best movie premises involve an eventual murder.
But by the end of that movie, everyone's like, yeah, that was really cool. We'd never heard of it. And I remember the quote was basically, boy, I bet Shane has a lot of great little movies that we've never heard of. We should get together every week and watch one.
Right.
And indeed, you know, I had a basement jam-packed with my DVD collection.
Unlike now, where you have them in a million boxes.
I have them in a million boxes, which we never see the light of day again. But I don't know how many it was at that time, but towards the end of the DVD cycle, the collection was well in excess of 3,000 different movies. Mm-hmm. Plus, you know, other sources for movies as well. They weren't all necessarily shown on DVD. But yeah, it was initially me bringing over a small stack of DVDs and letting people pick or dictating.
And to be fair, look, if you're going to start something off, Equilibrium is almost the perfect film because it stars a super famous guy, it's a pretty good movie, and no one's ever seen it.
Yeah.
So it has that kind of...
There's a little cult around it at this point because, between Christian Bale and Sean Bean as two of the major characters in it.
Don't forget Taye Diggs.
Taye Diggs, yeah.
The one actor in the movie who seems to not get the point of the movie.
That is true. His performance kind of misses the mark of the concept of the film.
I've read
about everyone supposedly, you know, taking drugs to be an emotional flat line because it's the extremes of emotion that cause all the problems in society.
And he's smiling through most of his performance.
Yeah.
Like mockingly smiling at people, which feels like disingenuine to the concept. I've read multiple comments by the director and other people saying, "Oh no, it kind of fits what we were doing." It's like, not really.
Or the idea that, no, well, there's a certain bell curve of emotional range that you can have while you're on these drugs.
Yeah, I mean, I like Taye Diggs in that movie. I just wish he'd smile a little less. Mm-hmm. He does have kind of an interesting bad guy vibe.
Yeah.
Although, arguably, everyone in this movie is a bad guy except for the puppy.
There's a puppy and there's what's her face? I can't remember her name now.
There is an actress in this. It's been 10 years since I've seen this movie, so yeah, somebody plays the outspoken protester.
Oh God, I feel bad that I can't remember her name.
And it's a famous British actress who's way above this material.
For Breaking the Waves, what's her name?
Emily? No. I'm forced to go to the IMDb. But let's move on to the next title while I look this up.
Well, to give you an example of the next few films, and I won't discuss them at length, but given this sort of a mandate to show interesting films that the normies hadn't seen, the very next one we watched was Kinji Fukasaku's Battle Royale. Mm-hmm. Which is, you know, quite extreme.
Emily Watson, by the way.
Emily Watson, here we go. Thank you.
Had to get it in. All right, so you did Battle Royale.
Battle Royale,
which is
long before it was ripped off by the Hunger Games.
Well, I mean, just as a tiny bit of backstory, Battle Royale was a Japanese novel, which was a massive bestseller. Then and it was a big book. It's a 700-page book. Then it was adapted as a 20-volume manga. And I mean, every volume is like 200 pages, so we're talking about an extraordinary work. It's a really big piece of work. And then they somehow crammed that into a 90-minute or 2-hour movie.
About 2 hours. It's a good chunk of a movie.
And no question, they did an amazing
job. The movie is great.
But they're all different, all three of those
there is an extended cut of the film, which is what I showed, which has a little more back history of some of the kids. Mm-hmm. And Battle Royale it's sort of like an entire season of Game of Thrones, back when Game of Thrones was good, in one movie, because you're introduced to a cast of characters, and you will be constantly surprised and horrified by who is getting killed off and how they're dying.
Well, the fun part is it's a bunch of kids dropped off on an island and told, either you murder each other within a specified amount of time, or they have collars? Is that the one?
Yeah, they have collars.
They have explosive collars on, or we'll start popping your heads off one by one. And the kids
and this is like a national sport. It's televised, and random classes are selected.
It's very much
so everyone would have known about this concept going in, but they wouldn't have known, oh, guess what? This year you're participating.
Right. The interesting thing about the film, of course, is because it's a class of students, they all know each other. So there's rivalries within the group.
There's dynamics. There's crushes.
There's love triangles, and all of these play out bizarrely when some of them.
When ultimately they're told, it's like, yeah, but there can only be one survivor.
Right. That has a very interesting performance by what is his name? Beat Kitano? Is that his
Yes,
name?
yes. Takashi Kitano, a.k.a. Beat Kitano, yeah.
Yeah. You know who was recently singing his praises? Craig Zoller.
Oh, yeah.
Craig Zoller points him out.
God,
as,
I would love to see Beat Takashi in a Craig Zoller film. That would be
it would
amazing.
shock me, although he's quite old now. He's in his 70s at this point.
Well, so it's Udo Kier.
That's a very good... It would be cool to see them do something together.
Oh, God,
Put
yeah.
those actors together. But
A versus movie.
Zoller mentioned...
There can only be one, Udo Kier versus Beat Takashi.
I would really love that film. Zoller mentioned that Takashi's films are almost the most influential on his career.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go back
I
and
can
watch
believe
his
that,
Japanese
yeah.
crime movies, which have... They are very slow burn movies, and they do a lot of living in the moments. A lot of scenes of the Takashi movies are lingering within a sequence where you're just stuck staring at a wall in a warehouse while a drug deal goes on, or right before someone shoots somebody, and you really lives there. And I don't love those movies, but I haven't seen all of them, and with the Zoller seal of approval, I kind of feel like I should go back and just watch them all, just to get them out of the way, because he's directed quite a few films, something like 19 movies.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, let's get back to your movie night. We segued way away from it for a moment.
Yeah, so because I was such a fan of Asian films, I continued with the Asian theme, this time going to China instead of Japan with Hero, the Zhang Yimou film.
Mm-hmm.
Stunningly beautiful.
Is it the one with the billion arrows?
Yes, there's a billion arrows and different sequences that are very heavily color-themed. Jet Li, probably giving his probably the classiest film he's ever been in. Mind you, I mean, he's been in some very good Choi Hawk productions as well.
Those movies are beautiful.
But, he has his fair amount of Hong Kong trash as well, and certainly his American career has not been stellar.
Right. I don't understand. You didn't love Danny the Dog? What a film.
Actually, I kind of like Danny the Dog.
I can't remember what that movie's actually
That one's one of the better ones.
It has a different title.
Well, Danny the Dog is one of the titles.
Yeah. It's Unleashed.
Unleashed, yes.
Oh, God, that's offensive. You don't realize until you hear the original title. Is this a dog reference? The Unleashed. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that is the final cinematic film for Bridget Fonda.
Oh, okay.
She married Danny Elfman, and much like an actress named Susie Amos, who married James Cameron, that their husbands removed them from the market. Meaning, you don't work anymore. You just stay home and make me dinner. Because they've never been seen again. These two people.
Yeah, that happened a lot with a lot of Hong Kong actresses back when I was following
That's true.
that film industry very closely.
Stop working.
Yeah, although that was more of a traditional Eastern sort of thing. It's like, well, yeah, you're married now, so you're not gonna be doing this for a living anymore. This is dirty work.
And with these traditional Japanese ideas explored, you're listening to CJLO 1690. Our show is called Cinema Smackdown, and today we're exploring films that Shane has shown at his personally curated movie nights.
Yeah, we're talking about the Genesis period of movie night, which is...
we'll probably come back to this theme a few times in the coming months or years, as...
Basically, whenever we're stuck for an idea for a show.
We can just go off on another series of movie night movies, because we get to go into random films and random movie memories.
Yeah, what other disastrous crap did you show at movie night?
Exactly. Well, I mean, there's the triumphs, and then
no, there
So far, you've only talked about things people have loved, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, well, again, I will briefly mention, just for the sake of continuity, the next one was another Japanese film called The Returner, little science fiction, time travel-y type.
I was under the impression you did not like that movie enough to show it.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it enough to show it. It was...
I mean, that is a blatant Terminator ripoff with... What else is it ripping off? Is it The Matrix?
It's one of those that steals from so many sources that kind of comes out the other end as its own original little thing.
I feel like my recollection of it, because I don't think I've seen it since about 2002, is it's good, but it's just muddled enough to be kind of an annoying movie. But it does have moments. That's my recollection. That's it. That's what I got.
Well, sometimes my choices are also tempered by the fact that movie night is overpopulated, especially these days, by science fiction fans who tend to watch any crap provided it's science fiction. So occasionally I have to come in and curate and go, well, how about you watch this? What do you mean you haven't seen this one? If you watch science fiction films at all, you should see this, because normally you're watching garbage.
Right.
But that leads us to the first true failing of movie night. The moment when it all nearly went terribly, terribly south. I decided, with these Lord of the Ring films coming out, and just kicking all sorts of ass, I thought maybe the movie night crowd might be interested to see the genesis of Peter Jackson's career.
Oh, okay.
So we watched Bad Taste.
Did you watch Bad Taste without warning people that they were about to watch a gore vomit fest?
Well...
With ugly Muppets?
They knew about Meet the Feebles, which was his film after this. Which is the splatter puppet film.
Which I will continue to argue is a nigh unwatchable movie because
it's a rough going.
It's actually too gross for me. That's really saying something. When you see how would I put it, a proto Kermit the Frog with buggier eyes shooting up heroin, it's a bit much for me. Mm-hmm. And there's a few of those scenes in that movie.
Well, Bad Taste, the appeal of that one for me is you can see it was a film that was shot over the course of several years.
Because of it being a weekend.
Yeah, it was a weekend warrior type of movie where, they get a little bit of money, they shoot a little bit more, they get a little bit more money, shoot a little bit more, and this went on and on and on.
Up until the middle of the movie in which they got a council grant for whatever arguably a large sum was, and suddenly the second half of the movie is effects ridden.
Yes.
Which is really something.
And Peter Jackson was doing stuff like building his own Steadicam.
Yeah.
And building other bits of film equipment just out of crap in his garage.
Yeah, just out of necessity, really.
But you could see him developing as a filmmaker and improving over the course of the film to the point where by the end it's like, this is pretty inventive.
Mm-hmm.
It also has the single best guy falling off a cliff scene I've ever seen in my life, where he created a dummy that looked effective. Like, usually when in so many old movies, it's like, oh, here's a moment where someone falls out of a building and a rag doll of a dummy comes out the building, just, splats on the ground, and it's very unconvincing.
I'm reminded of an often told but still amazing anecdote about Burt Reynolds working on Deliverance. Because there's a scene where he has to go down the rapids. His character goes down the rapids physically.
Right.
And he worked with John Boorman on that movie. They got a very realistic looking dummy. They threw it in the water. The dummy went down the falls. It looked horrible. Everybody looking at the footage said, that just looks like the worst dummy I've ever seen going over the cliffs. And Burt Reynolds said, screw this. I'm a stuntman. We're doing it for real. He jumped in the water with a very set plan of how to make sure it was done safely, completely messed it up, hit a dozen hard rocks on the way, broke an arm, broke a leg, nearly broke his hip, scratched up most of his body, went over the falls, landed on the other side, and when they looked at the footage the next day, John Boorman goes, it looks like a dummy. So, Reynolds probably would have said, totally worth it.
He nearly got killed and nearly deprived us of the best little whorehouse in Texas.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
But I will say, for me, there are only two effective dummy shots in the history of cinema.
Okay.
One of them is in a Charles Bronson film called The Mechanic.
Okay.
There is an action scene involving motorcycles chasing around some sort of badland type area. Mm-hmm. And one of them has a moment where it jumps off something, crashes into some rocks, explodes with the guy on it.
And
now this was done with
looks like a guy's.
This was done with a dummy, which was just in a fixed position. Wouldn't have been convincing, but when the motorcycle jumps off the ledge with the dummy on it, for whatever magical reason, the dummy's head shifts to one side, and it looks like a stuntman kind of looking like, where am I going to land? Okay, and then he sits right back up again. And it looks like a real person. And then he hits the rock and explodes and dies. And it's like, wait, did they just kill that guy?
Did they just kill that guy? I will argue there are two amazing dummies that spring immediately to mind in the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. Well, one of them 20 years ago. But, so one of them is the John Travolta dummy in Broken Arrow, which is extraordinary. If only because that movie came out.
I thought we were talking about convincing dummies.
Right when pause photography became possible.
Right.
There's a split second where John Travolta turns into a dummy right before something hits him, which is, it's amazingly comical. But, I mean, in the moment of watching a film in the cinema, you don't see it.
And, of course, these days he would turn into a CGI cartoon.
Yeah, which, well, this is much better than that.
It's
phenomenal, in fact. And the other one...
It obeys physics, at least.
Without giving anything away, the other one is in the movie Brawl in Cell Block 99.
Oh, yeah.
I would argue there's probably about 5.
That has a genuine charm to it, though.
Exactly.
We both agree. It's
a wonderful 70s style throwback to...
Yeah, which the film itself is sort of a throwback to that era of exploitation films. So it seems appropriate.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. So,
but the dummy in Bad Taste is there's a moment where one of the characters Peter Jackson plays. I think he plays more than one character.
He plays at least 2.
Yeah,
characters.
He falls off a cliff, and what he did with the dummy is he created the dummy that was sort of hunched over in a trying to protect itself stance. Mm-hmm. And then it was rolled down the hill. So it looks like a guy hunched over, hitting rocks, going ow, 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 all the way down. And you can feel it.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I've certainly seen the movie, but I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, so there's lots of little innovations like that. It gets better, it gets interesting. But it is ultimately an incredibly schlocky comedy, horror, science fiction movie with lots of splatter effects. And I showed this to a packed movie night, and they were not impressed. And that was the moment where I realized the movie nighters have no academic interest in film. They don't want to know, oh yeah, this is where this interesting filmmaker came from. They just want to watch the end product of someone's success rather than watching someone develop.
It's odd to me because I like both things. I like to get caught up in a film where everything just pulls me in and I forget there are any cameras or strings or what have you. And I love that moment. But honestly, as time goes on, that's rarer and rarer for me, that I'm so caught up in a story that I just forget about the construction. It's like staring at a painting and not being able to imagine someone constructing it.
Yeah, not seeing the brush strokes.
Exactly. Whereas I really do enjoy picking apart how something works. And there are moments in film that work so well, but you can't see them without saying, how'd they do that? Wait, how'd they do that?
Right.
And that just becomes part of the experience of watching a 5-minute handheld Steadicam shot that does things that timing-wise should never have worked, and yet is a perfect moment. You know, the opening of Touch of Evil.
Yes.
Which is just really extraordinary, and especially given the limitations of the time, but regardless still has a feel to it. And that's the big thing, is that feel, that believable, they accomplished something moment in film where you just stare at it going, I'm not quite sure how they did this. The problem is that once they opened in the mid-90s, once they opened the CGI toolbox, that feeling started to get weaker and weaker. I mean,
you don't feel the sense of inventive people coming up with solutions, practical solutions on set.
The most lauded moment in cinema history of the last 20 years that I keep hearing about over and over and over is the 5 or 10 minute scene in Children of Men where the camera just doesn't leave Clive Owen as he goes through a car chase and a bunch of fighting. And I don't like that scene because you can feel the digital touch-ups they used to fix it. Now, I'm sure that there's an extraordinary amount of work in that sequence that's all legitimately happening, but there's something just a little bit fake about it that takes me out of enjoying it.
Yeah, it's a little too polished.
Unlike watching, and I can't pull the title, but that the Indonesian kung fu movie where the guy goes up a staircase and fights 30 people.
Oh, yeah, which was that?
The one where he's got to save his elephant.
Tom Young-gun? Yeah.
That one.
Yeah.
Where there is
is amazing.
It's a 7 to 10 minute scene where a guy just climbs stairs and fights people
in a single shot.
And it is
and
exhausting because you're feeling every hit after about 4 seconds.
And there's all sorts of stunts happening, and you know if they screw up one, they got to reset and do it all again. And they're breaking props and furniture and walls and stuff.
They're throwing things. People are going through walls. People are being thrown off balconies. It is unreal how good that sequence is. And the reason is it's unbroken. You know that the amount of work that went into it.
And the longer it goes, you keep going. Yeah, there's some spectacular stuff that happens towards the end of the shot as well, and you realize it's like, if they screwed that up, everything before this would have been for naught.
Yeah, Yeah. And as soon as you finish a movie like that, you just want to run to the internet and see how many takes was it to
Yeah.
get that version.
Well, you kind of just want to stand up and applaud the filmmakers for pulling that off.
That's it. So that's what it is to be involved in the behind-the-scenes pulling of strings.
Yeah.
And,
well, the appeal for something like Bad Taste for me is to watch not just Peter Jackson, who at the time I showed this film had become one of the world's most successful filmmakers with the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
It is amazing how he took all the goodwill he had from that and essentially threw it away on one impossible-to-watch dramatic tragedy film and 3 more Hobbit films that even diehard fans I know... I mean, there are people who like those movies, but I know diehard fans who despise those movies. So he's not got a great reputation at this moment. He doesn't have, like, nobody's excited to see what he does next anymore. Oh, right. And King Kong.
When you said dramatic tragedy, I thought you were talking about King Kong for a second.
And his Saoirse Ronan movie.
Right.
Which is... It falls...
As opposed to the Kong superfan film.
Right.
Where it's like, we need to remake this film twice as long.
Yeah, no kidding. But the that movie... The Lovely Bones falls in that category of Book of Henry. That, what were they thinking? This is just awful. It's just awful, and they're lecturing me. They're lecturing me on some weird morality that shouldn't exist. And remember, I collect those movies now.
Well,
those movies of, I don't mean I own them, I just mean I am a fan of movies that are so moral compass wrong that you're just fascinated they could have ever come into existence. And Book of Henry, of course, is the pinnacle. And then we've got that Dan Fogler movie from last year that I've already forgotten the title of. It's something about love. It's an ensemble cast movie about love things, and it features a spectacularly violent moment 10 minutes into a happy love movie that takes anyone who's ever seen this movie completely out of the film for the rest of the running time. And it also continues to preach at you what love is for the rest of the movie. It is an amazingly bad movie. Let's see. Oh, however, we've perfectly landed on an ad break.
Yay!
So let's do a quick ad break. We'll come back with more movie night thoughts. I managed to get your cough in. It's perfect.
Yeah. Oh.
Here's our second reggae ad. I always randomly grab show ads now, but so I had randomly grabbed a reggae night one, and then we have 2 allotted must-play ads, and one of them was also a reggae night. I was like, that's a weird coincidence.
So this is working out that basically I'm going to cover like the first 10 movies we showed at movie night, which tells a bit of a story arc.
So what you're saying is we can only do 70 more episodes like this.
Exactly. We're
Whoa. What happened? Oh, VLC player froze for a second. It actually had a little, like... all the sound cut out. I look over and I saw, like... Effectively, it was one of those little hourglasses. And I was like, why would VL... It's not...
Yeah.
It's not playing something from the internet. It's playing something from inside the computer. So it's kind of nuts. Oh, the behind the scenes that your listeners are going to have.
Oh, yeah.
Now we're just about back. And we're back on CGL 1690. You're listening to Cinema Smackdown, where we are running down the first 10 or so movies that Shane showed at his hand-curated, hand-picked movie night.
Yeah, and we're discussing Bad Taste, which the Peter Jackson
failure.
It was the first one that led to open mutiny.
Right.
This is a problem I've had to face at movie night a number of times, where control was nearly wrestled away from me because I showed a film that people so disliked and were so disinterested in that there was an open rebellion.
Right.
And the open rebellion took the form of someone else at movie night saying, well, you know, I have some films I'd like to show. And I could feel the power slipping out of my fingers. It was this, no, we were going so well for so long, and then I showed them something that I thought would be interesting to see where Peter Jackson came from, and they weren't interested in knowing where Peter Jackson came from.
Well, you were doing a film class, and they were there to eat popcorn. And
yeah, that was kind of it.
You cannot eat popcorn while watching Bad Taste. You won't feel good at the end.
Yeah, I should mention that movie night is a combination of a dinner a shared dinner that we have, and then we watch a movie. With the idea that during dessert, someone will always say, "So Shane, what's the movie?" And sometimes the meal can eclipse the movie. But for me, the experience is always about the movie, and the meal is an afterthought. But, people get so wrapped up in that eating stuff that they forget, oh, right, yeah, movie. I guess we'll sit through one of those.
I don't always like to watch the film after the food, because sometimes the food will weigh a little heavily, and then you're
given that this happens on a weeknight at 7 o'clock, people are coming off work, and sometimes they're already exhausted, and they're hungry, and they're grumpy, and then I have to win them over with a splatter puppet movie.
What you need is to combine movie night with an espresso night. Doing espresso shots and
that might help. There's been a few nights I think where passing around some LSD might have enhanced the experience.
Absolutely, I'm sure that listeners should give Bad Taste a shot with some LSD or Molly or something. Whatever it is that just tunes you into the psychedelic weird universe.
CJLO does not advocate the use of drugs.
Nope, absolutely not.
The opinions expressed by the hosts are theirs alone.
And,
do not reflect that of the station.
They're sort of mine. It's not the way I want to watch Bad Taste.
As we both know, we're both big drug guys.
Oh, my God.
We just can't lay off the... I don't even know the vernacular for the drugs. Yeah, because I'm not a drug guy.
Everything we know about drugs we learned watching Breaking Bad.
Or Cheech and Chong's movies.
Oh, yeah. Because I'm a huge Cheech and Chong fan. I'm a fan of anything where people gradually turn into lizards during the course of the film.
So,
So Spider-Man movies and Cheech and Chong.
I'm pretty sure Steve Ditko was on something.
So you're saying...
the rebellion happened, and one of the other movie night founders, I would say, said, hey, how about I bring a movie next week? So I thought, oh dear. Here goes my power trip is ending right before my eyes. So he brought a French film he was fond of called The Dinner Game. Okay. Now, do you know this one?
I'm quite fond of it, actually.
Yeah. He was quite fond of it as well.
Would I show it at a movie night with Anglophones who don't understand French cinema sensibilities? Not a chance. This is a movie that just my one point I would make before the movie even starts is you do understand the French have a very different concept of infidelity than we do, right? For them, it is a given that every man is having an affair. That's in that movie.
And probably every woman.
Yes. That's in the movie, and it's integral to understanding that culture before the film starts, because there are things that are glossed over in this film where you realize, like, wait, are they saying he's cheating on his wife, but she should be okay with that? Like, it's interesting.
Yeah, I'm not terribly shy about showing things that are very culturally different. Although I have mentioned, and I was talking about this with Eric, the host of Movie Night, only yesterday, that I have not shown a Bollywood film simply because so many people cannot wrap their head around the fact that, oh yeah, we're watching like a remake of Old Boy with musical numbers.
Right, but one of the biggest issues I have with Bollywood movies is that they are, by and large, they're over 3 hours each, which means...
Well, yeah, because you got to fit in all those musical numbers.
It's just like... Even if I could get caught up in this, you're asking too much of me. It's too much time. It's a Bollywood Fight Club. I couldn't do it. I tried.
I was talking to him about the big hit film. Eric is one of these people who just watch every science fiction movie they can. Right. And I have threatened in the past, but I've never had the nerve to show the English title is Robot, which is a direct translation. I can't remember. And Theron, I think, is the... Anyway... it was a massive hit in Bollywood. I think it's the single biggest Bollywood film ever made. And it is filled with inventive robot action scenes. But
it also has 90 or 100 minutes of Bollywood.
Here's 5 minutes where we're having a song and dance number in Machu Picchu for no reason discernible other than, well, we had the budget to go there.
I am a fan of showing people movies and editing them.
Well, yes, I should have mentioned my screening of Equilibrium, and every time I show Equilibrium,
that's a good point.
I cut that opening explanation of the world scene. I have it down to a science where I cue the film up and I fade the sound in. And if you ever watch that film, skip the beginning, just semi-close your eyes, squint a bit, get to the scene where there is a guy holding a painting, looking at it. That is the true, proper start point of that film. Then you can go back and watch that opening sequence as I have before. And this is the thing they slapped on the film, and everyone goes, yeah, that's crap.
Right. I would argue the same thing about Dark City. Dark City has an opening where Kiefer Sutherland explains the world to you horribly, by the way. He over-explains fully one half of the film's plot in 30 seconds.
And this is always a studio imposition.
And, they eventually did put out a director's cut of Dark City, which removes that moment, which is wonderful, but unfortunately adds in about 15 minutes of worthless deleted scene outtakes, which ruined the movie. So the only thing to do if you want to watch Dark City at this point is watch the original theatrical cut and mute it until the guy wakes up in the bathtub.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the movie. That's the real movie, because literally every second of added footage is painful.
Yeah. The other, of course, famous example of studios doing this is the narration in Blade Runner.
Yep.
It's like, gotta explain this world to people, otherwise they're going to be lost.
So tell me about...
So the dinner game was fine, but it wasn't the level of entertainment people had come to expect from these early days of movie night. So almost immediately I was handed the reins back, and I followed up with a film that we've discussed only recently when we're doing our Neil Marshall show. I showed them Dog Soldiers.
Right.
And that kind of brought the mood in the room right back up again.
Well, much like Equilibrium, it's a lesser-known kind of crowd-pleasing action.
Balls to the walls, soldiers versus werewolves movie. Lots of inventive action and fun.
Yep. I don't like it as much as I like Equilibrium, but it is an entertaining.
No, and I don't like it as much as I like some other Neil Marshall films. Exactly. But it's a solid, entertaining crowd pleaser.
Yeah. So let's do one more. We just have enough time.
Oh, one more.
If you've got it, or we can talk about something else.
Oh, okay. Well, just to give you an example of, it wasn't all about the balls to walls action films, but inventive, interesting. I showed them a French film that I thought would be a better crowd pleaser than The Dinner Game, and that was The City of Lost Children.
One would hope that would be a more appreciated movie, as it is an unbelievable masterpiece.
Yeah, so. It really is. Yeah,
it is an amazing movie for me for one reason, and I could go on and on about how much I like that movie, but one reason is that it is one of the main stars of the movie is Ron Perlman. This is a French language movie in which Ron Perlman does speak French in this film, so he, in his own voice, manages to kind of brokenly do his lines, although he plays a simpleton character to some degree, but he's wonderful in it. I'd argue Ron Perlman's pretty much wonderful in everything. He's one of those actors who just he's got an odd charm about him. Since the first time I saw him or recognized him in The Name of the Rose, he was around before.
He is amazing in Name of the Rose. Yeah. I watched that again this past year.
And I've never come to appreciate his role in Hellboy more than when I saw the new Hellboy movie. Not anyone can just do this. Right.
It's not a matter of slapping on some makeup on a big guy.
And a big guy with a growly voice.
Yeah.
Because, the new guy's terrible.
He's less a problem than the overall script.
Trust me, I've said this before, I say it again. One day, that guy is a little on the outspoken side.
Oh, he is indeed. Yeah.
He's a little on the outspoken side. He's quick to condemn people. He's quick to make pretty weird, dark comments about things. He's going to get #MeToo'd one of these days. Somebody's going to come along and go, yeah, he did this. And it'll be a massive scandal. There's something...
I don't know. At this point, I think there's a Me Too exhaustion that has set in.
The world will always be...
There's been a few that have come out and everyone kind of went... whatever, another one.
Another Cosby?
That Stallone one didn't seem to stick.
No, that was a rough one.
That was a rough one too. Yeah.
It's true. There seems to be a strange giving people a pass for some of these.
Yeah, like I said, it's a scandal, outrage, exhaustion that's set in.
Both Stallone and Schwarzenegger have sex scandals from earlier in their careers, like 70s behavior that is very, very scary if you look them up. They're definitely things where you're like, I kind of wish that person had gone to prison and never had a career based on this thing I've heard. Both of those are quite terrible, but you know.
But all this is a segue into the obvious connection that that period of Jean-Pierre Jeunet's career was masterful.
By the way, he has recently resurfaced to say that he has basically exhausted his venues for getting work. His current project is an Amelie mockumentary because he cannot get work in major cinema right now. He had one film come out a few years ago that had its release bungled, and so it lost a ton of money. And no one's ever heard of it because it basically, I think it was a Weinstein film that got buried. And I have seen the movie. It is quite terrible, so that doesn't help. It has some sequences shot in Montreal, by the way.
Oh yeah.
It has some moments, I think, of someone walking over the Jacques Cartier Bridge or something. But it's shot all over the world. It's I wouldn't even pretend to know the title. It's J.S. Privet or something. But it's one of those long, the arduous journey of so-and-so.
Yeah, like
something.
The Fabulous Adventures of Emily.
Precisely.
Yeah, yeah.
But at any rate, yeah, he is currently in a position where he doesn't feel like he can get a big job or get financing to make real movies. So he's doing these tiny little nothing projects just for his own, just to keep busy until it comes around again. Which is kind of amazing. When you see City of Lost Children, you say, well, obviously people should be lining up to give this guy money. Look at what he did with whatever that budget was. That movie looks like it cost $500 million.
Right.
And yet, there's no way it could have.
Well, what was it? It was Mark Caro who used to do the set design for him.
What's that?
Mark Caro, who used to do the set design for him, and ever since they split up, it hasn't quite been the same.
Although I do quite like A Very Long Engagement. It has its very charming film.
Yeah.
But we have run out of time again, as we often do. We will come back in a few weeks with another edition of Shane's Movie
Or
Night.
maybe next week if we have no ideas.
If we have no ideas. But until then, I remain Michael Brody, my guest, and
yes.
The person,
Screw you, I'm your co-host.
The person who...
I want a raise. I want a promotion. I'm co-host.
I've raised you up today just by giving you this forum. But at the moment, we're out of time, so we'll see you on the flip side. That's a terrible outro. Shouldn't have said that. Oh, you know, I went through our episodes and realized I hadn't copied one from 2 weeks ago. I had not made a copy of our Marvel episode, so it wasn't on my stick. So I grabbed it off the website, and I actually posted...
Well, weren't we shut out 2 weeks ago from the system?
No, that was last week. Is the door locked?
Someone trying to get in?
I think I heard tap tap.
Yeah.
Oh, it is. It's not locked. Okay. All right. Good to go. All right. Just so you know, the clock on here is